folks. Welcome back to Love and Grit. My name is Laiya.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Rachel.
And today's episode celebrates two of our Latina sisters redefining the creative and hospitality industries in Philadelphia. We will talk to Shannon Maldonado, who brings her expertise of working for some of the top clothing brands in the world to her Philly-born super brand YOWIE. Also, we are catching up with Jezabel Careaga, our favorite chef and furniture designer. P.S. What? But first, it's time for our lightning round of Philly faves. Justin and Rachel, are you ready? Give me your favorite Philly word.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, you go first.
I'm going to choose water.
Not wood or ice, you're just going straight water.
I'm going straight water. I'm thirsty. I need a glass of water.
All right, who's next?
Go for it.
All right, I hope I'm not stealing Justin's, but come on, man. The best Philly word of all time? That John right there?
Yeah, I knew
John
that.
over there? That John over there? What
I
John?
mean,
Who John?
it's the Philly word.
That's it. JAWN, by the way.
I should have let you go last, because that's the big finish.
No.
But mine is G? Like, G your breakfast? You don't say that? Like, I literally say it all the time. G?
Once he's used it in a sentence, I was like, hey, y'all.
One of our favorite storylines for Adult Philly Stories are those moments when one of its sons or daughters goes off to the world, learns the depths of their passion, and brings that talent and education back home. Well, thank goodness Shannon Maldonado is the perfect example of that. Although Shannon gained her knowledge in design working for brands like Ralph Lauren, American Eagle, and Tommy Hilfiger, she decided her now world-renowned YOWIE brand will be based in her hometown of Philly. How and why she did it, that's what we're here for.
Tell us your story.
Yeah, so as she mentioned, I grew up here. I grew up in South Philly, actually just a 10-minute walk from my shop. So I grew up on.
I love that.
But always was creative. My parents nurtured that in me. I've always made things. I used to make my own clothes in middle school and high school.
You were that girl.
I was that girl.
But wait, was it trendy? Did people think oh, wow? Or was it
oh, that girl's
weird.
weird.
Not open-minded.
It was a mix. Some stuff I think people are yeah, and other things are okay, yeah. I always loved fashion. And when I graduated high school, I was I have to get to New York. I have to go to FIT. That was my dream at the time. And I got to New York and I was truly that person just skipping down Fifth Avenue. I was I can't believe I'm here. Because I wanted to be there so desperately, and worked in all these fashion brands, as you mentioned. And for a long time, I loved it, really, really loved it. But then I hit a wall creatively and wanted to do something where I just had more ownership of my creativity and had more ownership of the different parts of design that I love. So when you work in, a corporate setting, it's very much, this is what you're good at, this is what we like you to deliver, but you're not kind of able to color outside of those lines. And I felt very frustrated, and I had all these other things I wanted to do. So in starting YOWIE, it was really a nights and weekends project for a long time. It was just something to keep me motivated while I was at work. So I just worked on it at night. And then in 2015, when it started to feel like it was forming into something, I started to save money and decided I was going to leave my job. It's very unlike me. I always tell people I'm a very risk averse person, and I quit my job with kind of a plan, which is not something I think I would ever do if I looked back and asked myself. But I knew that I wanted it to be in Philly. My whole family still lives in Philly. At the time I was dating someone in Philly, and I kept coming back, and I'd ask people oh, what's your favorite store? And they're and there was 3 stores. And I'm how do we have a city, we have 3 stores that people are talking about?
I'm so curious. What were the 3 stores at the time?
It was Vagabond, Moon & Arrow, and at the time, they're no longer there, but it was Meadowsweet Mercantile. Meadowsweet actually ended up being our first pop-up. They were in Old City. They're beautiful stores. They still, most of them exist today, but they were all kind of similar in that they were more bohemian and more holistic wellness. And I mean, if you've seen my brand, we're colorful and bold and kind of crazy and punky. And I was I feel like the brand I want to create still doesn't exist in Philly. And it felt very exciting that Philly, it still to me feels like a retail wild, wild west. If you want to come here and open a weird store, there is a place for that, and I got very excited about that. And even more excited when I found a space near South Street, which to me is one of the most diverse areas of Philly. When I was a kid, I'd go there and it was like punks and hip hop people. Like everybody was hanging out on South Street, and I loved that energy.
Do you remember that? Just like driving down South Street, and there was like people with mohawks.
Yeah.
I remember getting dressed for South Street. Y'all remember that?
I was never that cool. I was just in the car, like in the back seat.
Driving by.
Like looking at, oh my gosh.
Philly would feed that passion. How did you know that it was like, you know what? I know people will want to be a part of this and support this.
I didn't know that Philly would feed it. I think in my heart, I knew that Philly's a place where, like, if you prove yourself and your intentions, they're fans for life. So it was like,
Girl, say it again. That is so essential. Please.
I feel like we had a great kickoff. So the quick version of that story is, so I quit my job, moved back to Philly a month later. I launched the brand in May 2016 online. We just had 12 products. It was very small. And something in me, I was like, I have to just take a chance. I have to leave my corporate full-time job and move back to Philly. I freelanced at Urban. I made sure I had, a little bit of a safety net while I figured it out. And I got back and I did this pop-up and people were really excited about it. I spent a lot of time really trying to find my community here. I cold emailed 150 people to invite them to this first pop-up. I came back to Philly with maybe 5 or 6 friends. So I knew that I had to start from scratch and just be really vulnerable and really open to like, hey, I'm doing this cool thing. Like, I wasn't afraid to say
here's
that.
The thing.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about Philly though, right? If you believe in it and you work hard at it and you're nice to people, you can be successful.
Yeah.
Yes, Justin.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the name?
The name is one of 100 and I think it's like 25 names that I had. It was...
That's so funny because when we picked a podcast name, we picked it instantly.
Yeah, it was so easy.
It took us months. And so I can't imagine thinking about putting a sign on the front of his store.
Yeah, it took me a while. I asked a lot of friends. I did a lot of mini focus groups. I look back now, it's 4 years later, and I chose YOWIE because YOWIE is Australian slang for Bigfoot. And the idea of Bigfoot is that he is this creature everyone is always looking for. We're trying to track him down. He's kind of mysterious. And I wanted to create this brand that was very slippery and like, you can't ever really nail down what we're doing.
Yes.
Like we're a shop, but then we also do interior design, but then we also do consulting.
Don't put us in a box.
That's right.
Like I'm rebelling against my past life. You will never put my brand in a box. We will never be known for one thing. And it just felt so right to choose that as kind of our icon. And it's also just a word it's so exuberant. It's very rare that someone's like, oh, what's your brand? YOWIE. They're just like, YOWIE. Like they scream it and they yell it.
They call it onomatopoeia, right? That's what it's called when a word sounds like what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Exactly. So it's just when I started to say it to people and hear them say it back, I was like, oh, this word has a lot of really exciting power to it without having any American connotation, which is cool. Like most people here don't know what it means. I also found out once we launched it, it's like dirty anime books are also called.
I think everything's probably a dirty anime book somewhere.
It's a funny coincidence. It's fine.
What was it like when you joined forces with Ubik? Because as a Philly girl, that must have been like a moment, especially as a sneakerhead too.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Just being from Philly, I'm like, Mom, I'm on Walnut Street. Like I was like, my stuff is on Walnut Street. Like I couldn't get past that. And we had the window. That was a huge moment for us. And that was also a huge turning point for us as a brand where for a minute I was like, is this the right thing? Trying to calibrate what the brand would be. And then I was like, if I can sell ceramics to sneaker guys, I think that I'm on to something. Like
hell yeah.
Hugs from us. So it felt like a very affirmative moment that we were on the right track. And it's also how I met actually years later, my business partner I met at that pop-up. Yeah.
That's a very Philly connection though, right?
Oh.
Like through Ubik, which is legendary here.
Mecca.
Totally.
So we're celebrating Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. What does that mean to you? Does it mean anything to you? What do you want people to know about it?
So I'm biracial. My father is Puerto Rican and my mother is Black. Now I'm in my mid-30s. I'm getting to know more of my culture more than ever and wanting to know more about both cultures. So I think all of it's about, representation and just making sure that people like me feel seen. I think my proudest moments are thinking about when I'm in the shop and someone Black or Hispanic is like, is this your shop? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, really? Like they're really
excited
and impressed and excited. And that's like such a moving, like I didn't start this thinking that that was important. And now 4 years later, I know that it is. So I think it's about, sharing space, giving people opportunities and making sure people have that visibility. And that visibility really is so important. I didn't have that when I was a kid. My heroes were white men, the designers that I loved.
I mean, you worked at Ralph Lauren.
Yeah. My hero's a tiny Jewish man, but like,
it doesn't get much whiter than Ralph Lauren.
Yeah, but I wish.
And that's fashion.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's fashion. So I think to be a small part or a small face that people can see and relate to or feel like my story inspires their own, I mean, that's huge to me. That's my motivation every day.
And Shannon, that's so important, especially now more than ever, making sure we're supporting Black and Brown owned businesses. Everything with the pandemic, it's become even harder to thrive when we knew it was just as hard before with setting up your own business and making sure that you get the financial support and the community is supporting. So the fact that you are being celebrated and folks are excited, that's great. And we definitely want to continue to support you as well.
Thank you so much. And I'm honestly so proud to do it in Philly. And I love that in the shop, we get so many visitors from everywhere. And they're always like, wow, I've never been to Philly. There's so much cool stuff here. I'm like, yeah.
That's what we are.
I like that we're almost between like a hidden gem and then this thing that people are just discovering.
I wanted to big you up too for using your voice during this time as we're going through a whole nother civil rights era. You represent, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I feel very fortunate that I have a brand that people resonate with. And because I have this platform, it's important that I use it and use my voice to talk more than about products. And when everything was going on and people were boarding up their windows, I did the opposite and I put a message of support in the window. And this amount of positive response we got from that was really overwhelming. I was just like, I'll do this and hopefully nobody breaks my window because I'm doing this. But instead, it really blew up into something really beautiful. And I was so happy to do that. And it felt really good as a leader to stand in that and be really proud.
That's true leadership.
Yeah. Proud to be Black, proud to be a Black founder, and not feel like I couldn't talk about this very important thing that was happening.
I love that. I see you. And I see you with those weights and those responsibilities of being a Latin sister, being a Black sister, being a business owner, and all of that together. So I just wanted to let you know that I see you. Thank you.
Tell us where the store is so everybody can stop in.
Yeah, we're located at 716 South 4th Street, and I love it down here. I used to shop at Fabric Row when I was a kid, so that's why we're down here.
Where can we find you on social?
Yeah, on social, we're at Hello YOWIE on Instagram and Pinterest, Facebook, and then our website is shopyowie.com.
In Philly, when it's time to enjoy, when it's time to celebrate the good times with good company, you gotta break out the good stuff. Have to.
Come football season or your favorite movie, it's time to break out the Hers. Crisp and tasty, sour cream and onion, salt and vinegar. Every bag is an invitation to a good time somewhere. No RSVP needed.
So live it up and crunch it down. For the downright fun times and nothing short of the best times, break out the Hers. All right, so let's get this straight. Jezabel Careaga teaches cooking, owns a restaurant, and designs furniture? Yes. Jezabel Studio and Cafe has been a welcome force in its West Philadelphia neighborhood, flaunting some of the best Argentinian food in the city. You will eat it and you can learn how to make it all while sitting in furniture handmade by Jezabel. Sounds amazing? Well, she is. Meet Jezabel Careaga.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Laiya. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Justin.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Joining us. You've often referred to yourself as an adopted Philadelphian, and I'm so curious, what made you fall in love with our region?
As a kid, I always look up to the Northeast Corridor. I'm from Northwest Argentina. There is something about this part of the country and America that I just love. It's the grit, whatever comes with it, the work, the hustle. So I'm going to say serendipity somehow brought me here. And the first time I came here was actually in October 2008. So over like 12 years. And I just love the city. It's not New York and it's not like overwhelming. It's actually very friendly. And you can get around easily. You have the river. I mean, that's just to start.
Yeah, definitely a walkable city, that's for sure.
And the very neighborhood oriented kind of a pace, you know, and you kind of know everybody. When you start like living here, you get to know people.
But I think you have to be a certain kind of person, right? Like you're obviously a very social person, a very hospitable person. Everyone knows your empanadas. Food is like what brings people together. I think especially in the city.
Yeah. And the one thing that I will say as a person who grew up somewhere else, you look up at these places, right? At these big cities in the US, and then I get myself here, and actually it's not that much different. People love food in the city. People love family. People are really close. If you love someone, you love them, and you tell them that you love them. So I think there is a togetherness. Sometimes I find myself in the street of West Philadelphia, and it reminds me of the streets that I grew up running as a child, where there were a lot of trees. So, you know, Philly has that familiarity that I don't think you can find it in other places. You don't find it in Brooklyn. You don't find it in San Francisco, but you find it here. People just coming together, loving food and strong family bonds. And that's what I grew up with. And I'm happy I found it here.
So you mentioned family, and I know that you had family visit with you early on when the pandemic first started.
Oh my God.
How were you able to share Philadelphia with your family member with so many things at the time that were closed? How did you share your love for our region?
Well, I was my dad, an uncle, and my brother were here. And I just had to run the show. And I was like, guys, this is what we're going to do every day. You know, I was putting together a little bit of a plan. And then my dad actually helped me in the kitchen every single day for 3.5 months. And listen, I love this man. And now I love him even more, you know. And he actually helped me to get through all of these and talk about having family on like these really tough times. We did takeout from different restaurants. One day was sushi, another day was Vietnamese cuisine. And that's what Philly has, diversity.
Yeah.
Have some hummus from this and half. So I make sure like we brought that home, and that I shared a little bit of the food from Philly. And whenever we could, we will go to Kennett Square, or we will just go and take a walk at the Navy Yard, which is one of my favorite places in the city. I love the Navy Yard.
What's your transportation of choice in the Navy Yard?
Bicycle.
I keep hearing about that, and people say it's like magical.
I gotta do this. I still haven't even been to the Navy Yard, so I'm like open eye, like tell me all about it, Jezabel.
We are going, Laiya.
Okay.
I'll meet you there.
Yeah, on my bike. I'm a biker, so yes.
I love it. I live right in Center City West, so I just head straight to Broad Street and go all the way down. It's around like a 10-mile loop.
Ooh,
coming back and forth. You can do it in an hour. It's awesome on a Sunday at 6:30 in the morning when nobody is out there. You know, and then when you're in the Navy Yard, like you have all these little buildings and nice little nooks to just go around. It's beautiful. One of my favorite things is to grab a picnic and, of course, head to the Navy Yard. Another one is just walk around Washington Square.
It's so peaceful.
I know, right? And we forget it's there. And Emil at Sahav, that's one of my go-to things whenever I have guests out of town. And then if someone meets me here for lunch or something, I have my little tour in West Philly where we just walk for like 20, 30 minutes. And we used to sit down at Vientiane, this cafe on Baltimore Avenue. And most likely now we will do either takeout or we will share lunch at the cafe on 45th and Walnut.
That sounds like a great day. Good itinerary. Everybody taking notes?
Actually, I was like, wait, what did she do?
Laiya always has her pen and
Jezabel,
paper ready.
How would you describe your style of food?
Simple yet delicious. That is, no, I mean, I make very kind of homey food. It's very simple. I try to use as many local ingredients as we can. You bite into an empanada and it's like nice and crunchy outside and very juicy in the middle. And the spices are just right. It's hard to find a word to describe it, but I think simple is the way to go for me.
I was going to ask you the story of the empanada because it seems like it depends on the Latin country, but like Argentina has the empanada, Brazil has an empanada, like everybody has a version. And what is the story and who is the originator of the empanada?
What I know of, we have this strong influence. So there are all kinds of empanadas all over the world. You know, Filipinos have an empanada.
Wow.
And any kind of dumpling, it is kind of an empanada. So that's kind of what happens. But we receive this very strong influence from Spain. And they have the Empanada Gallega, which is kind of like a half moon shaped pie. It's close. Empanada means between bread. So anything that is between bread, it could be considered an empanada. And you know what? The funny story is I grew up thinking empanadas were kind of like the thing I will eat around my grandma's and in Argentina. Like, yeah, our empanadas are so Argentinian. And I was 16 and we went for summer holidays to Chile, Northwest Chile. And then I'm like, they make empanadas and they sell empanadas. You know, this is me around like maybe 15, 16 years old. And I had one Chilean empanada and I was like, no, this is not an empanada. This is something else. Now, trust me, I do crave Chilean empanadas and I make them sometimes. But it was that like cultural shock. It was sweet and it had calamari olives and it had like a lot of onions, which it was so unfamiliar to what I grew up having.
So how do you go from there when you're 15 to now when you have the title of Queen of Empanadas in Philadelphia?
That part.
I wish I knew, but I'll say this. There is no linear path for what I did. I went to school for tourism and hospitality management. I love to cook. I grew up cooking. I'm not a trained chef, but I can make a mean empanada. You know, I think for me, since I moved to Philly and I knew I was moving here to open the cafe, it's been little by little reconnecting with that food that I really love.
We have the food part covered. How does the furniture making come in?
I'm going to say I'm a very curious person.
Please tell us just like the first moment. I just need to know the first moment you put your hand on some metal and was like, I'm going to make this something.
I made like these little side tables, coffee tables on my teenage years. I was a very handy kid.
You were doing a lot as a teenager. I mean, has anybody else done as much as a teenager?
I can't do all of that now.
Yeah.
You know, I feel so lucky because my parents were like, I want to make a table. And then my dad will go and get some wood and he will help me set it up. But here in the US, I wanted a little more design-like things. And you know what? To be honest, I couldn't afford it. Most of these things that I really connected with, they happened because a friend said something to me. The table that I have my computer now and I have all of these set up, a friend of mine said like, hey, I have this piece of glass. If you get some legs, maybe you can have a nice table for your house. And I was like, sure, sounds great. Let me look it up. So that's kind of how my furniture thing started. Making furniture and making food, there is not that much difference, right? In the sense of you need a material, you need ingredients. You grab this material and then you have to treat it, you have to cut it, you have to chop it, you have to stain it, you have to cook the food. When do you salt it? So I think the processes are similar. I'm just using different materials.
You're like phenomenal. I want to ask you about this Cooking Like Grandma series that you do. I said grandma. I know it's grandma. In light of Hispanic Awareness Month, in light of everybody talking about this monolithic Latino vote, like it's just one thing, but it's the community is so diverse and there's so many countries.
Oh my goodness.
Can you
absolutely
talk about that and why you chose to do it and the things that have flourished from it?
I'll start by saying this. I think what I do is very connected to kind of my personal evolution. And I think I make this room to explore what I'm feeling at the moment. And that started as very simple, like I'm craving my grandma's meal. That was it. You know, I was like, what would happen if we have something that is called if my grandma were to cook you lunch? And that's how it was like, okay, let's make it a dinner series. Let's invite one chef at a time so we can truly highlight this person's grandma, and we can really like dig into the relationship they had with the food that they grew up eating. You know, most cooks and chefs, I would say, they have some early experience in their childhood, whether it was family or parents or grandmas, that really connects them to what they do today. You know, we had a meal from Honduras, we had a meal from Mexico, we had a meal from Spain, we had a Filipino meal. And you know what? The similarities you find are a lot more than actually the differences that you will find. And that's what I love about it. And, you know, we create this meal where you have truly our grandma's dishes on the table, maybe a little more elevated, but the soul is there.
Jezabel, as it's Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th to October 15th, what do you want people to know about that month? What do you want them to take away?
I want them to be open-minded. I want them to be curious, and I would like people to walk into all of these places with an open mind. Latino, I think we're not talking enough about how diverse we are. The accent is just one minor thing. If you go to Mexico, Honduras, Panama, Colombia, Chile,
Cuba,
Argentina,
Puerto Rico.
Cuba,
I'm like,
Puerto
goodness
Rico.
gracious.
Yeah. The one thing I will tell people is like, just be open-minded to listen their stories, to know where they come from. We do have a thread in common, but there is also so many beautiful things to learn about each country, each culture, each region. You're going to be surprised. At the end of the day, we are all humans, and the more we learn about something else, the better this world is going to be. The more that we embrace diversity, we're going to be a better world.
Where can we find you?
You can see me cooking at Jezabel's at 45th and Walnut. So we are 208 South 45th Street. You can follow us on Instagram. Most likely see me in the kitchen. That's where you will find me. And that's one of my favorite places to be.
What great energy from these two ladies, huh?
I love today's conversation. I love every conversation. We have great guests. I'm going to say it.
It's just making my list longer. I got so much to do.
We have more ideas, though, for great gifts. You know,
yes.
If you're supporting Black and Brown owned businesses or just need unique gifts.
Yes, cooking classes with Jezabel.
That's
and then
smart.
Big Macs at YOWIE, yeah.
Pair it with like a Visit Philly overnight hotel package. And
Look at Rachel.
It's true, because people don't think about that. Think about it. So much time has gone by, right? And you haven't seen family members, or you've been stuck in the house. So you might want, for your own gift, you know what? I want to enjoy someone taking care of me. I want to be at a hotel, or I want family to come visit, but I don't want you to stay in the house. So I'm going to give you a gift, like, here, stay at a hotel and we'll still do something outdoors and you don't have to stay with me.
All right, so she's getting us hotel rooms, like.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
We're in.
Four Seasons right here.
Why not? And pair it up with something from YOWIE or
Some of Jezabel's Empanada.
I was going to say, yes.
We have tons of things for you to check out. Great itineraries at visitphilly.com. Please check us out there. And don't forget to tell your friends about Love and Grit, because we hope you enjoy these conversations as much as we do.